104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio for another riveting edition of Dark Side of the Stream, episode 90.
90. All right, we're getting
We're
close.
10 away.
Getting close. I better
We're
make a
10
really good one.
away. Oh, we're gonna have to probably start
gotta
planning
put some
now
brains
because we're gonna
together.
drop the ball if we don't
Yeah,
start
like,
now. We're gonna probably pick some awful documentary for 100. We can't do that. All right, so this week was Jay's pick, and it was the murder or disappearance of Kim Wall.
What's it called?
Undercurrent, I believe.
Underwater Undercurrent.
Yeah, Undercurrent is, I think. Yeah, Undercurrent. And it tells the story of the murder and disappearance of Kim Wall, who was a journalist in Denmark. They call this Ubadsagen.
Oh, yeah.
Ubadsagen.
Ubadsagen.
I think that's how you say it.
Well, the guy was like
Ssagen.
This guy was like a Musk, Bezos kind of dude.
Yeah,
like building rockets, building
yeah.
submarines.
I had actually never heard of him. I think he was a little bit more famous in like Denmark,
Europe,
Norway area, just because of the, him being kind of outlandish, like you said, like the Elons or the Jeffs that kind of just push it and push it and push it. He built his own rockets.
Yeah. Built his own submarine.
He built his own subs. He was a genius, but as you find with people like that,
Sometimes
he
those
was also very eccentric. Let me ask you this: what's the most complicated thing that you've ever built yourself? Now, I'm talking about not just like buying a thing, like you actually put it together.
Man, I'm not much of a builder.
But you are. You set up the lights and the PA stuff and all that stuff. You're engineering that stuff, but you didn't create it.
Yeah,
a bird box in high school?
No, I'm not much of a builder. Skateboard ramps.
Ramps?
Yeah, we used to build steel lumber and then build skateboard ramps.
So that was probably the most
zero plans.
Just do it and hope
not the right tools at all.
Just
hope it works out.
Using like staplers to keep it all together.
Yeah, very bootleg.
So skateboard ramps for you. I think the most complex thing that I ever built on my own was a distortion pedal. And I mean, I did everything. I made the board. I soldered it all.
The pieces.
Everything.
Okay.
Now, the thing about that, when I did it, because I was like, oh, I can do this. I can figure this out. And I did. But what made me realize how awesome the pedal industry is how they're able to make it fit into, a box like that. Because when I did
was yours massive?
Dude, it was like huge because I had to do it all myself. I had to get the board from when we still had Radio Shacks and get all the components. I had to read the schematic and do it all, but I got it to work. It wasn't like the best distortion tone in the world. It worked and it was good, but I don't think I used it a whole bunch, but I just wanted to see if I could do it. That
good
was
project.
But again, we're not crazy psycho killer evil genius dudes like this guy, which is the subject of our discussion. Dark Side of the Stream will return in a few minutes on 104.7 The Cave. "104.7 The Cave." Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Episode 90, Dark Side of the Stream, discussing Undercurrent, the disappearance of Kim Wall. Now, Kim Wall was a journalist from Denmark, Norway area, and she was really, really into like going to places that single white females probably shouldn't
Yeah, pretty
go.
crazy, ballsy girl, man.
But again, you hear about these journalists that do that stuff. They put their life on the line for the story. And she was one of the places she went was that island that was like just basically a giant cement dome that had a bunch of nuclear waste in it that's leaking.
Very weird, yeah. Very, very sketchy.
I'm watching the documentary. I'm like, where's the documentary about this place? That's leaking into the ocean right now. I want to know about that and where to avoid it. But so Kim was kind of on the edge. And when this guy came out and he Peter Madsen is his name. He had built another, I think this was his third sub. He wanted to take her out and show her the sub. And she was like, great, this is low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
it's easy. I'm just going to ride in a sub, hang out with this guy, interview him, and then he's going to take me back to port. No big deal. Let me ask you this. Would you, if your girl was like, hey, Jay, I'm going to interview this dude in a submarine. It's just me and him. We're going to go. Would you do it?
Go do it. I ain't going in the sub.
I ain't going in no sub.
You can go in the sub. I'll stay.
I don't know if
I'll stay above ground with all these girls.
I don't know, man. I would be really, really, really.
I'm not too down with submarines or under the ocean.
Yeah,
stuff.
the under
Scuba
the ocean.
diving. I'm not into this.
I mean, like I like that stuff, but being in a tin can that was made by some guy.
Yeah, some homemade stuff.
That in itself was really crazy.
I'd have a mimosa flight on shore instead.
So what happens is they go off in the night. She texts her man. She's like, "Hey, we're going down. I love you." And he brought tea and cookies for us. And that's the last communication she has. She doesn't reach back out. And then the next day, they find him standing on top of the sub as it's going down.
No girl,
just him. He jumps out. They save him. The camera crews are there because they'd all been alerted that this guy was missing and this girl was missing. And they're all like, "Where's the girl? Where's the girl?" And he's like, "I dropped her off to port." Well, that was the first of many story changes he had.
Yeah. Didn't he say first there was no girl?
He's like, "No, I dropped her off."
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Wait a minute. No, that's not true." And then he basically changed his story to be like, she had hit her head on something, and then that's what happened. And then
he threw her over. Yeah, it was
he threw her overboard.
You just listen to it and you're like, wait a minute here. Now it sounds like a kid trying to get out of stealing cookies.
But as we all know, sometimes it's hard to prove that anything happened to someone if there's no body found. But then one day something is found, and we'll find out what that was next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. .7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. It is Dark Side of the Stream, episode 90, discussing the disappearance of Kim Wall. So the Peter Madsen gets rescued. Essentially, he basically puts his sub and sinks it.
Yeah. Why? So they couldn't get evidence out of it, or what are you thinking?
Well, he
because he said it's hard to sink the thing. Like they were like, "That's
no." He said it on his own. They knew. Like,
the investigator was on it. The investigator person will just say
that was kind of a
the investigator person. The investigator person did a very good job on
right out of the gate.
Yeah, right out something was wasn't buying the story, sniffed it out,
and knew that there was an intentional dive and was like throwing red flags right out of the gate,
left and right.
So he changed his story, says she got knocked in the head and that she had suffered, and he freaked out and he threw overboard and blah, 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 blah. Well, when they dived down there, they were like, this doesn't look right. They looked in the sub. They were like, this doesn't look right at all. It doesn't really match what he's saying. And then eventually they find a plastic bag with a human torso in it.
Chopped up.
And so that is now kind of weird. And they're like, well, what's the deal? And he's like, oh, I just freaked out. And now it was basically up to the rest of the searchers to find her head, to collaborate or to disprove his story. And eventually, after they searched and they studied, it was real. That was one of the, I know you were probably bored to tears when you were watching this part, but to me, it was really interesting, the undercurrent. And they went with, there was like this like specialist who could tell you mathematically, if based on the conditions, current, and looking at all the stuff, where it would be. And inevitably they were able to find it.
Amazing.
And disprove that, yes, she did not get hit in the head by something. That's not what killed her.
But it's okay, because they locked this guy up in jail. And he was in jail. And then, what happened?
And then, so they convict him.
You turned into a spinning orb.
And then essentially he escaped again.
He escapes jail.
He escapes jail.
Super genius.
So they also, when they were trying him, went back and looked at all of his searches and come to find out he was into torture and BDSM.
Yeah, and some weird sex fantasies.
And the other thing that was crazy,
got really weird.
There was a couple people that had said like they could have been like, there was a couple instances where he was obviously trying or working towards doing this, that he could have done it with somebody else, or he was like planning on doing it with someone else. And
luck
Kim
of the
Wall
draw. Bad luck of the draw.
Drew the wrong card that day. And it's unfortunate, but yeah,
it takes a crazy twist, this documentary of this guy's life.
He definitely, it just, like I said, sometimes when you're like a genius like this, you also are a lunatic, and this guy was inevitably a lunatic. So we'll see what happens with him, but he escapes. They ended up catching him again, and he is currently
another documentary where the guy it makes us look so much better than this people.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's why you pick them. At least these. We'll come back.
Keep them coming.
We'll come back with our reviews next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. .7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens, back in the studio one more time to give you our thoughts on the Undercurrent, the Disappearance of Kim Wall documentary. So how many sunken submarines would you give
I'd go 2.5, just because it was okay, but I like that it had a twist at the end, which I always like that in documentaries. Yeah.
He did get out. He did get back, and he's back in prison. And
tell me this now, if you were talking about building things, all right, how far with the homemade thing would you go? Would you, if I built a homemade rocket, would you ride in it?
No.
Okay, if I built a homemade sub, would you ride in it?
No.
If I built a homemade train, would you ride?
No. Are we talking about like
it's like a train to go around the yard? Train to go around the yard. Yeah, you go on that one?
All day. Yeah,
train, what if I made a homemade roller coaster? Would you?
No.
No? Okay. So
the line is, my question, whenever I ask myself, am I going to do this? And the answer is, you could die from this. Then all these other things have to come
into play.
Well, that and how much control I have.
Right.
For example, when you go floating, if you're floating in high waters or there's a risk of rain or flood or whatever it is, I know that I am in control to a point. If you get thrown into the water, sometimes you don't have control, but I can plan with, life jackets and being smart.
You're fairly confident in your swimming ability.
In my swimming ability and my knowledge of how, rivers work and currents work and what to do in that situation, because I've been in them before. So it comes down to control. But yeah, whenever it comes down to, can you
bungee
die
jump?
From this?
Would you bungee jump?
Yeah, it depends on where it is and who it is.
Skydive.
If I'm in Mexico and they're like, hey, let's go bungee jumping, I'd probably say no.
Okay.
Skydive, yeah, it depends on who it is. I know guys that do it, and I would jump with them. Oh yeah.
Branson zip line,
I would do that. Yeah.
Okay.
But we're talking about things that you've invented.
Different
than somebody else.
If I built a zip line, out here, would you ride it?
If it was from the roof of the building to your car,
and maybe if you saw me go first,
I'd let you go first and test it. But I'd give it 3 subs on this Dark Side of the Stream. For next week's Dark Side of the Stream, I'm gonna have to look at my phone history because I'm an idiot. And I forgot to write it down.
We just talked about it.
We just talked about it, but when I was talking about it, all I said was
we didn't know the name.
I was like, bro, there's this documentary. I saw this really good one, and it looks really cool.
He did a professional tease.
And of course, I am an idiot, and I didn't discuss this. Okay, here we go. It's the story of Steven Stainer. And he was a 7-year-old kid who got abducted and basically survived and came back to his family at 14. And the documentary is called Captive Audience, a real American
I saw the
horror
preview.
story, because it's not just about the kidnapping.
I bet.
And what happened to him, because what happened to him is totally screwed up.
I bet.
But then something else will happen with his brother.
Okay, all right.
So this is like, it's literally like, you remember how this whole show that we do started with Abducted in Plain Sight. We're like, how many screwed up things can happen to one American family? Be careful if you ask that question.
Captive audience.
Captive audience on Hulu is your homework assignment. As always, watch these live on YouTube, Facebook Live every Thursday at 9, or download them as a podcast on our 104.7 The Cave app. I'm Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens reminding you, we watch movies so you don't have to. It's Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.